The next few slides will be about developmental information for kindergarten age students. Usually when kids enter kindergarten, they're 5 to 7 years old, and this is a very critical time for developing reading and writing. Without a good foundation when they're younger for reading and writing, they might struggle when they get older. At the beginning of kindergarten, most students are at the emergent reader stage, which means that they start to show interest in books. They pick up the books, pretend to read them, flip through the pages, using the pictures as cues to retell the story. Students also might be able to identify some letter names because of environmental print. Now, by the end of the school year, some students may be still struggling at the emergent stage for reading, but most students will be at the beginning stage of reading by the end of kindergarten. They will begin to identify letters and sounds, match spoken words to written words, and recognize at least 20 high-frequency words. Most students coming into kindergarten start at the emergent writing stage as well. Here, students distinguish that writing is different than drawing. Kindergarten, they also figure out directionality, meaning that print goes from left to right. We read left to right. We write left to right. Also, students learn how to write their first and last name. By the end of the year, students in kindergarten should be getting into parts of the beginning stage for writing. Students will be writing from left to right, printing uppercase and lowercase letters, using punctuations at the end of sentences, capitalizing the letters at the beginning of their sentences, and spelling at least 20 high-frequency words correctly. Behaviorism is a learning theory, and it's teacher-centered. Behaviorism learning theory usually uses basal readers, which are the normal textbooks provided by schools. In kindergarten, this might be okay, but it's not the ideal way to teach 5 to 7-year-olds. It's I do this, I get a reward. If I don't do this, I get punished. Now, the constructivism learning theory is more student-centered. Constructivism fosters the students to question and be more curious when reading, which is inquiry learning, John Dewey. And it also recognizes the importance of background knowledge or the schema using Piaget's assimilation and accommodation. This is good for kindergartners. Social linguistics learning theory is mostly student-centered as well. It is how students organize their thoughts. So using the Vygotsky's theory of zone of proximal development, which is keeping the material not too easy but not too difficult for the student, but making the material right in that zone or in the instructional level. Information processing is the last in the learning theories and is student-centered as well. Information processing compares the mind to a computer and states how information travels through a series of processing units. The 3 steps are, first, the sensory register coming into our brain, second, short-term memory, and finally, long-term memory to retrieve. In kindergarten, all 5 pillars of reading instruction are very important. Phonological awareness and phonics are the 2 I would pick to be the most important in kindergarten, because without those 2, you will not have fluency, you will not have vocabulary, you will not have comprehension. Students need a solid base for phonological awareness and phonics, and that begins in kindergarten. Phonological awareness can be done in the dark, and students usually announce the answers orally. Here, students are usually trying to blend the onsets of words and the rhymes of words, so the beginning and the ends, and orally figuring out rhyming words, rather that would be real or made-up rhyming words, and segmenting words into syllables. Phonics is the second pillar I picked for kindergarten students. The phonics in kindergarten is usually learning that consonants have sounds, vowels have different sounds, long and short, high-frequency words, and how sounds blend together to make words, mostly CVC words. The more high-frequency words students know, the better their fluency will be because they're not getting stuck on decoding. Fostering the love of literature in my classroom is going to be important to help my students want to read. So I, as the teacher, have to be a reader myself. We are very big role models for students, especially kindergarten. They want to be like us, so seeing the teacher read is pretty cool because then they want to do it themselves. But we also need to be a fluent reader ourselves. Like the last slide mentioned, as being an example, kindergarten's a very influential age. They mimic whatever they hear or see being done. So, for example, if you're not being a fluent reader yourself, then the students are less likely to be fluent. It's very crucial that you yourself are a fluent reader for the purpose of the children. Another way to foster love of literature in your classroom is to have many different types of books. The books that you should have are not all of the same kind, but many different genres and topical books. So books to be over poems, chapter books, picture books, fiction, nonfiction, books of Civil War, books of grass, books of animals, etc. The last way that I'm going to talk about how to foster the love of literature in your classroom is to talk it up. Talk up your favorite books. Talk up how much you love to read. Talk up reading. Talk up how awesome it is. Because like I said before, kindergartners love to please and use that to your advantage. If making you happy will be them reading, then tell them that. Getting students to read can be a struggle, but getting students to write can be an even bigger struggle. One way to get students to write for kindergarten is to have a whole class writing, so write a story together. This shows students that writing can be fun because you can use your imagination and nothing is really wrong when you're writing your own story. A way to include families into literacy education would be by hosting literacy family nights at school where students and families work together on fun literacy activities. A first-year teacher might not be able to pull it off by themselves, but with the help from the PTO and maybe another experienced teacher or so in the building, you could form this family literacy night. Another way to incorporate families into literacy education would be to bring a guest reader into your classroom. These guest readers could be a family member or community member. Sometimes students get tired of hearing and listening to the teacher's voice, so bringing in another voice is really ideal. You would be shocked when it is a new person reading how well the students listen. Finally, using family members or community members as a pen pal is a good idea to help foster and build writing skills. At the beginning of the year, you could write the letters together as a class to show how students should write them. Once you get into the second part of the year, the students could be writing their own letters to the pen pals.